Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We're going to be checking out a video titled Germany's Green City with More Bikes Than Cars. I genuinely cannot imagine a city having more bikes than cars, but if that's really the case, that's really, cool, because I'd imagine that, those people take their life, a lot serious, a lot more serious. I've personally, don't ride a lot, even though I recently learned how to ride because I now live in Europe, like some of you guys do know. It's not something that I do all the time, but it's something that I want to do more of because it's really much better for you. It's simple as that. But without further ado, let's check out this video. If you have any recommendations, click that link in the pinned comment section and you'll be able to recommend any video related to Germany, and I'll check it out as soon as possible. Without further ado, let's go right into this video.
This is Freiburg im Breisgau, a city in the Black Forest. It's often referred to as Germany's Green City. It's a city with more than twice as many bicycles as cars, and over 400 kilometers of bicycle lanes. It's a city with a lot of trams and amazing pedestrianized streets. Over the past few decades, Freiburg has become a leader in modern sustainable urban development, and they're building an absolutely amazing city in the process. Germany is well known for its car industry and autobahns, but Freiburg is different. This is a city where cars do not rule. Freiburg is a university town, and around 10% of the population attends the university, so obviously you see a lot of students cycling to and from school.
Dude.
And a lot of
What the? Dude, I'm not trying to over-exaggerate this, but dog, bro, this looks like a whole sea of bikes, bro. This gotta be over 100 bikes, bro. I'm not trying to gas y'all up, bro, but this is really actually an impressive sight. This is actually impressive.
Bicycles parked outside the university. But you also see a lot of cargo bikes and families, a key indicator that Freiburg has a very advanced bicycle culture. The old town in the center of Freiburg is a wonderful place to be. There's old architecture alongside the new, and the streets are beautiful too. Isn't this amazing? I even managed to film 2 trams going through here at once. Appreciate my patience and good timing. Everywhere you look, there are trams, people cycling, and lots of people of all ages out enjoying themselves. There are nice, narrow streets and lots of outdoor patios. The city center is almost entirely pedestrianized, so of course, it's very quiet. Yet another reminder that cities aren't loud, cars are loud. And when you do see the occasional car, it looks comically out of place with so many people around.
And I hate to break it to you, that car, he said it looked out of place, but do you see how difficult it is to drive a car right there? You know what I like? For example, living here in Finland, I live in North Finland, right? And when I go to anywhere South Finland, I would consider South since I live in North. Everything below me is South, right? But when I go a city or 2 below, I would drive, I'm like, man, to drive here is just not feasible. I'd rather walk here. It literally brings out the mobility in your legs when you see a lot of people already walking and how difficult it is to drive. So I don't know why that person isn't even caught, man, get out, bro. On feet, let's go. That's just how the vibe goes when I see people doing that.
The city center has these open water channels, and it's said if you fall in one, you're destined to marry someone from Freiburg. But the best part is that kids actually make boats to sail on the water. Isn't this just one of the most wholesome things you've ever seen? This is so much fun. I was lucky enough to meet up with Ashton from the YouTube channel Type Ashton while I was in town. She and her family are from the US, but they loved Freiburg so much that they decided to stay in Germany permanently. Ashton has great videos on her channel about everything from macroeconomics to microurbanism, and she talks a lot about the differences between the US and Germany. I'll leave a link to her channel below. And of course, she's also an expert in Freiburg, which was great for my first trip here to this amazing city. Seriously, the Freiburg Old Town is one of the nicest places I've ever been to. So you might be thinking, okay, this is an old medieval city, but actually, it's not what you might think. Sure, Freiburg was originally founded in the year 1120, but most of Freiburg was leveled in World War II, which was the
Oh,
case
okay.
for many cities in Europe, of course. But what was truly unique about Freiburg is that when they rebuilt it, they made it similar to what it used to be instead of being rebuilt for cars. So remarkably, pretty much everything you see here is less than 75 years old. Unfortunately, the rest of the city was not so lucky. It's commonly said in Freiburg that the war destroyed 80% of the city and cars destroyed the other 20%. Outside of the city center, neighborhoods were built with that car-centric vision of modernity that was common across the world in the 1960s. This road just outside of the city center used to be a narrow street, just like the rest, with several popular beer gardens and restaurants.
Beer gardens.
But they were all destroyed to build the ring road. The 1960s really were the decade of destroy stuff to build roads, and we're still paying for those decisions today. It was only very recently that activists were finally successful in getting a car lane removed to build this totally insufficient bicycle lane. This area will likely never return to its original beauty, and it's entirely because of car infrastructure. Ironically, the center of Freiburg, though rebuilt in the style of the original city, was completely overrun by cars and asphalt. Look at this difference between this footage from 1973 and how it looks today. This pedestrian square used to be a parking lot. Now, parking for the city center is in garages on the periphery. There were several key decisions that put Freiburg on the right path and avoided the destruction that comes from making a place car-friendly. In 1972, the city voted to keep its tram network. This had a massive impact on the Freiburg we see today. There's one consistent thing I've seen in cities all over the world. Every city that retained its tram network has better urbanism than any nearby city that didn't. But Freiburg went a step further and actually expanded its tram network through the 80s and 90s, while other European cities were removing theirs. The first part of the city center was pedestrianized in 1973, and once the cars were removed, the city center became a successful business district with a popular market that is still active today. The market surrounds this beautiful cathedral, and it's one of the genuine highlights of the city center. And of course, this used to be a parking lot too. In the 1970s, there was a growing environmental movement that protested.
I like that idea of like I'm not trying. I'm like, okay, how do I make this that it makes sense? Like when I think about a city, right? There's so much in a city that, in my humble opinion, it should not be something or a place where drivability is easy, in my humble opinion. And like it will never be easy to ever drive in a city. It just will never be easy. Like you look at a great city in United States, that's in New York, right? New York City. And you think about driving there for individual. Well, I've never driven in New York City actually because I didn't have a driver's license. But for people who have either driven or been driven in New York City, it is quite an experience. It is quite difficult to actually drive in New York City, but get on your feet in New York City and it's 10 times better, right? And shopping becomes better. Like everything is much more visible when you are actually moving at a slower pace in a city, in my humble opinion. So having a parking location is really smart where you can just park and just, roam the streets on your feet. That's what I think. I think cars are better off for, country life. Like you're living in a rural area and, for example, where I live right now, like, having a car and then you go into another city or something like that. I think that's, special for cars, but like, I think this is like ideal. I really respect this.
That would destroy the neighboring Black Forest. This kept the city more compact than most cities that were built or rebuilt for the automobile after the war. In 2002, Freiburg elected the first Green Party mayor in Germany, and since then, Freiburg has become the model for sustainable city development in Europe. One great example of this is Vauban, a suburb completed in the early 2000s that was designed to be environmentally friendly from the start. The buildings here were built to a very high energy efficiency standard, and you see solar panels on roofs and balconies all over the neighborhood. Some of these buildings even generate more energy than they consume. The neighborhood was built on the location of a former military base, and some of the apartments were built from the original barracks. One really unique element is that many of these apartment buildings are collectively owned. A group of people would come together and build an apartment building themselves instead of buying units from a developer.
Okay.
Today, the majority of residents in Vauban live in housing cooperatives or social housing developments. When Vauban was first built, only about half of households owned a car, but remarkably, that number has actually decreased, especially after the tram line was completed in 2006. Today, the vast majority of households in Vauban do not have a car, and there are only about 170 motor vehicles per 1,000 inhabitants. I wonder if these old clunkers count towards that number. You don't have to walk around very long to realize that a lot of people get around here by cycling, even though this is a suburb on the edge of the city. The neighborhood makes extensive use of modal filters, allowing people walking or cycling to pass through while being off limits to cars. This is exactly the same method that the Netherlands uses to discourage car traffic, especially through traffic in residential neighborhoods. This makes the streets of Vauban very safe for children, and you see lots of kids out on their own. And some of the streets here are designated as play streets. This neighborhood has one of the highest percentage of children in all of Germany, which isn't that surprising because places without cars are better for kids.
Indeed.
Vauban is also very well served
Indeed.
by...
You know, like, though I'm a car guy, I'm such a big car guy, I'm so happy that I have my human heart still working. You know, I think yesterday the traffic lights were out, you know, and I was driving to get back home, and I saw some kids going by, you know, and when the logically, if the lights are on, right, the pedestrians will get theirs and you will get yours, whatever. But the lights are out, right? And what did I do? I drove around and I stopped and I told them to go, right? And I was so angry inside because I know that most people who are driving, it doesn't matter what country it is, most people who are driving will not stop and allow a pedestrian to go across no matter what. Like, I've seen it so many times and it gets me so angry. Like, one day I was driving and I saw this guy and the kid was on the other side of the road, but he was on the pedestrian and the kid was waiting for the car to go by. And I was like, you're not gonna lose any time stopping at that pedestrian crossing whatever and letting that kid through. So I really, you know, understand where he's coming from with this video about kids being safer, you know, when there's less vehicle, because most people who are driving are so inconsiderate. They don't give one rat ass shit about nobody, you know. So I really respect it and I really appreciate it, you know, when the kids can actually go out there and actually be kids and actually play and have life, bro, because you know, they don't have to be worried too much about getting hit because of a car. Like, that shit is mad scary.
Which isn't that surprising because places without cars are better for kids. Vauban is also very well served by transit. On the west side is a transit station with tram and bus stops connecting residents to other parts of the city. But the tram line also runs along the whole side of the neighborhood, making it easily accessible to everyone who lives here. This should be the model used to design new suburbs everywhere. Unfortunately, not all neighborhoods in Freiburg are as well designed as Vauban. So you'll see other districts with streets lined with parked cars. And it always annoys me when cars are supposed to be parked on the sidewalk. Because while Freiburg spent only a few decades building car-centric infrastructure, those places still remain, as it takes many decades to repair that kind of damage. But you can see some of those repairs taking place, with extra space being given back to people who walk and cycle. There is, of course, a lot of bicycle infrastructure in Freiburg, including many curb-protected bicycle paths. Unfortunately, even major intersections are totally unprotected, designed in the Copenhagen style as opposed to using much safer Dutch designs. And there are still many painted bicycle gutters and dangerous merge lanes on busy roads.
Yeah, I don't like
So
that.
clearly, there are still opportunities for improvement. But many of the streets in Freiburg have so little car traffic that dedicated bicycle infrastructure is not required. And some of these have been designated as bicycle streets, where people cycling can use the whole street and drivers need to yield to bikes. And it's always great to see parking spaces converted to outdoor seating for local restaurants. Now, there's a lot that's been written about the cycling infrastructure in Freiburg, but I actually think the tram network is one of the city's best features. Freiburg refers to its tram system as a Stadtbahn instead of a Straßenbahn, the usual German word for tram. This is because they consider it to be better, with separated tracks, traffic light priority, and a higher average speed than most tram systems. The trams in Freiburg are very modern, with level boarding at tram stops, making the system very accessible, though there are still some older trams that have yet to be replaced. The tram network covers most of the city and even goes out to several suburbs. And the current planning rules state that new housing cannot be built unless it's within walking distance of a tram line. I didn't even cycle while I was in Freiburg because if I have a choice between cycling and taking a tram, I will take a tram. I was able to get everywhere I wanted to go, and I never had to wait very long for a tram either.
The thing is, the only thing with a bicycle, compared to a tram, in my humble opinion, why I wouldn't choose the bicycle is just because the bicycle might be an expensive bicycle and somebody might try to get that bicycle, but if you have locks and shit like that and, it's a trusted area, you'd probably be alright. But me personally, nah. That's the only reason why I would not choose the bike over the tram. But every other reason's nah, bro. Immediate. I'm on that bike. I'm gone. Like, I'm out.
As the trams have a signal priority and a dedicated lane for most of their routes, getting around by tram is extremely quick and efficient. And there are so many grassy tram tracks here.
Yeah, that's wild.
I love grassy tram tracks. Also, I like the new tram and bus station at Europaplatz, with chargers for the electric buses. And the roof of this station is covered in solar panels. In fact, the entire tram network, as well as all of these electric buses, are run off of renewable energy because, of course they are. Freiburg is not a sprawling city, so it's very easy to get out into the Black Forest. We heard there was a great view from a cable car nearby, so we set off to visit. We took tram 2 out to the end of the line in the south.
I would love to go on one of those, man. Like, bro, I just wish I was able to experience a lot of cool stuff. Like, I can't believe it took until I got to Finland before I even got on a tram. I've not even been on a tram before. I've seen them, never went on one before. I hope I get to do that soon, but I really don't really push things. Like, I usually wait until the opportunity really comes, but we all know opportunities out there. You just got to go out there and reach for it and grab it. But, I'm really not a type of guy just go grab shit. I just really chill and just, let things play out. But I think I got to start grabbing some of the opportunities because, life is short. So type shit, you got to do what you got to do.
Where we picked up a bus. We had to walk all the way from the tram right here. It's just so great. I know this is just a silly, trivial trip to a tourist attraction, and this trip doesn't really matter at all, but this is the way public transit should be everywhere. Not just for the center of the city, not just for commuting, but for all kinds of trips that someone might want to take. Now, the weather wasn't the best, but the view from the gondola was nice, and when we got back, the tram was waiting for us. Freiburg's train station is centrally located, though not very pretty. We got here by train, by the way. And while the road directly outside of the station is not as nice as it should be, there is a separate area above the station where you can board a tram and go into the old town without interacting with any cars at all. Or you can pick up a bike share bike to continue your journey into the city. And there are clearly a lot of people who cycle here. And if you need to access the other side of the city, this walking and cycling bridge will take you over the train tracks. which also used to be a car bridge until 1996 because, of course, it was. I prefer it like this. And now it leads directly to this bicycle parking garage for the train station. Freiburg is a highly desirable city that is sustainable both environmentally and financially, and with great public transport. It's a beautiful place that's safe for children, accessible to all kinds of people, and enjoyable to be
That's
in.
risky,
And yet,
Pops.
it's not thousands of years
You know that train ain't gonna stop for you, though, Pops. Come on now, don't do that.
old. Every one of us probably knows someone who is older than the Freiburg city center, which really does make you wonder, why can't we build more places like this? It's not like it's lost knowledge. We know how to build like this, and we know people like being in places like this. This is what the sustainable city of the future should look like. Not a place with wide roads and self-driving cars, but a human-sized city with clean and efficient public transportation and streets that are safe enough for everyone. Over the past few years, Freiburg has become very well known by urban planners in Europe, and many planners and politicians come here to learn about sustainable urban development, which is great because, as far as I'm concerned, the more cities that copy Freiburg, the better.
Indeed.
If you're a fan of car-free places, you might enjoy my video about Zermatt, a car-free town. Nebula.
Indeed. I liked it. I really like it a lot too. I hope I could actually visit that place one day. But that's really impressive, you know, to have so much bikes. Like, it was so visible that they had a lot of bikes. It's not even like, you know, you couldn't even see, like, clearly there's so much bikes going on, man. Like, I've never seen a parking lot flooded with bikes. Like, literally, I've never seen that in my entire life. So that's actually pretty impressive and pretty cool. I actually respect that a lot. And y'all can let me know what y'all think about it in the comment section down below. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. Any recommendation, as usual, you can hit that link in the pinned comment section, and you can recommend whatever videos you want to recommend, as long as it's related to Germany. And also, a link for the original video will be in the description of this video. So if you have not seen the original video, you can click that link and go check it out. Anyways, guys, I'm out of here. Peace.